That night, I understood that a wedding could actually destroy two families. My name is Frida Jackson, and I'm 55 years old. I'm a mother of three, but this story is about my oldest son, Tadeo. The day of his wedding should have been the happiest day of his life. It wasn't. I still remember the scent of lilies in the church, the white lights hanging from the ceiling, the guests smiling. Tadeo waited at the altar in that navy blue suit he loved so much. He was nervous, but happy. I was happy too, until the moment came for the toast. The bride's father, Mr. Humphrey Sterling, took the microphone. He was a hefty man with a deep voice, the owner of a major construction company. Everyone knew him, everyone respected him, or so they thought. He raised his champagne flute and said, "I want to toast my daughter, Sophia. She's always been stubborn, even as a kid. And today she insisted on marrying this young man." There were nervous laughs. Then he added, looking directly at Tadeo, "That boy is an idiot." The room erupted in laughter, but I saw my son's face. He turned pale, his hands trembled, and he lowered his gaze. I felt my own legs give out from under me. No one else seemed to notice. Everyone was laughing, everyone was toasting, as if humiliating a man at his own wedding was funny. I clenched my napkin in my hands, took a deep breath, and knew something right then and there. This man wasn't going to get away with it because I knew things he thought nobody knew. And that night I was going to reveal everything. But before I tell you what I did, let me tell you how I got there, because this story didn't start at that wedding. It started months earlier when something inside me told me, "Frida, investigate that man." And I did. What I discovered destroyed his entire family. When Tadeo told me he'd met a girl, I was thrilled. It was January, and it was freezing outside. We were in my kitchen, drinking spiced coffee like we did every afternoon. "Mom, her name is Sophia," he told me with that shy smile he'd had since he was a boy. "She's different, she's smart, and she makes me laugh." I watched him. Tadeo was 28. He worked as a civil engineer at a small but honest firm. He was my oldest son, the most serious, the most responsible. He had never talked to me about a girl like that before. "And what does she do?" I asked, stirring my coffee. "She's studying architecture. She's about to finish her degree. Her dad owns a big construction firm, Sterling and Associates." That's when something inside me shifted. Sterling. The last name sounded familiar, but I couldn't place it. "Have you gotten to know her well?" I asked. "Yeah, Mom. We've been seeing each other for 3 months. I want you to meet her. Can I bring her over for dinner Sunday?" I agreed, of course, because a mother always wants to see her children happy. And Tadeo looked happy. That Sunday, Sophia arrived. She was pretty. Long, dark hair, big eyes. She dressed simply but with class. She greeted me respectfully and hugged me. "Mrs. Jackson," she said in a soft voice, "thank you so much for having me over." I prepared chicken and rice, my specialty. Tadeo was nervous, but Sophia helped set the table. We talked. She told me about her career, about her dreams. She wanted to design sustainable, affordable houses for families. I liked her, but when she mentioned her father, something shifted in her voice. "My dad is demanding," she said, moving the food around on her plate. "He's always wanted me to be perfect, to get the best grades, to marry someone on his level." "And what does he think of Tadeo?" I asked, pouring her more water. Sophia looked down. "I haven't told him we're dating yet." Tadeo gave her a surprised look. "Sophia, come on. It's just," she sighed, "my dad is complicated. He always says men have to prove their worth, that he doesn't trust anyone who doesn't come from a family with money." I felt a knot in my stomach. "Tadeo comes from an honest family," I said firmly. "Hard-working, with values. That's worth more than any money." Sophia looked at me with teary eyes. "I know, Mrs. Jackson. That's why I love him." Tadeo took her hand. I smiled, but inside, something was unsettling me. That man, Humphrey Sterling, sounded like someone difficult, someone who judged people by their bank account. And I knew that type of man. I had seen them all my life. They always hide something, Months passed. Tadeo and Sophia became an official couple. He was in love, radiant, coming home singing. He talked about her all the time. "Mom, Sophia understands me. She respects me. She doesn't care that I don't have a new car or that I live in a rented apartment. She says the important thing is building something together." I nodded, but kept thinking about her father. One day, Tadeo came home looking serious. "Mom, I have to tell you something." We sat in the living room. It was raining outside. The sound of water against the window calmed me. "I'm going to propose to Sophia." I felt a mixture of joy and fear. "Have you met his family yet?" "Yes. I went to their house for dinner 2 weeks ago." "And how did it go?" Tadeo hesitated. "Her dad, Mr. Sterling, is odd, Mom. He asked me a lot of questions about my job, my salary, my plans. He asked how much I made a month, how much I had saved, and if I owned property." "And what did you tell him?" "The truth, that I earn enough, that I'm saving, that I don't own a house yet, but I work hard." "And what did he say?" Tadeo clenched his fists. He said, "Well, son, I hope you know my daughter is accustomed to a certain standard of living. Not just anyone can support her." I felt anger, but I held it in. "And Sophia, what did she say?" "She got mad at him. She told him I was a good man, and that was the only thing that mattered." Mr. Sterling just laughed and said, "We'll see about that." I couldn't sleep that night. Something about that man bothered me deeply. It wasn't just his arrogance. It was something more, something I couldn't see yet, but I was going to find out. Tadeo proposed to Sophia in April. She said yes. They cried together. He called me, excited. "Mom, she said yes! We're getting married!" I was truly happy, but that same night, alone in my room, I looked out the window and thought, that man is going to try to ruin this. I know it. And I was right. 2 weeks later, Sophia came to see me. She was crying. "Mrs. Jackson, my dad says he doesn't want me to marry Tadeo." I sat down with her, served her chamomile tea, and held her hands. "Why?" "He says Tadeo has no future, that he's mediocre, that he'll make me unhappy, that I'll regret it." "And what do you think?" I love Tadeo, but my dad is so stubborn and my mom always does what he says. I'm afraid they won't stand by me." I squeezed her hands. "Sophia, listen to me closely. True love doesn't surrender to fear. If you love my son, fight for him. And if your father doesn't accept it, that's his problem, not yours." She nodded, wiping her tears. "You're right. I'm going to fight." And she did. Sophia confronted her father. She told him she was going to marry Tadeo, with or without his blessing. Mr. Sterling had no choice but to accept, but I knew a man like that never accepts defeat, and I was right. The wedding preparations began. Tadeo was happy. Sophia was too. But Mr. Sterling, he imposed conditions. "I want the wedding to be at the country club event hall," he told Sophia. "I'll pay for everything, but it's going to be done my way." Tadeo wasn't comfortable with that. "Mom, I want to pay my part. I don't like depending on him." "I know, son, but sometimes you have to compromise for Sophia." And he compromised. But I didn't compromise, because something inside me was saying that man was hiding something big, something dark. And one afternoon, while I was having coffee at a cafe downtown, I saw something that chilled me to the bone. I saw Humphrey Sterling with another woman and 2 small children. The woman kissed him on the mouth. The children called him Dad. I froze. I paid my check, left there, walked to my car, sat down, took a breath, and then I knew what I had to do. I was going to investigate that man, because if he was deceiving his wife, his family, and everyone, then my son was about to enter a family built on lies, and I wasn't going to allow it. For 3 days, I couldn't sleep well. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the same scene. Mr. Sterling kissing that woman, the children holding his hand, the way she looked at him as if he were her whole world. And then I thought about Mr. Sterling's wife, Mrs. Eleanor Sterling. I had met her only twice at the engagement dinners. She was an elegant, quiet woman, always with a polite but sad smile, as if she had been carrying an invisible burden for years. Now I understood why, but I needed to be sure. I needed proof, because accusing a man like Humphrey Sterling without evidence would destroy my son's wedding. And I didn't want that. I just wanted to protect him, so I did something I never thought I would. I hired a private investigator. His name was Roy Mendez. A friend whose husband had cheated years ago recommended him to me. He was discreet, professional. He had a small office in an old building, a second-floor walk-up above a dry cleaner. I climbed the stairs one Tuesday afternoon. The hallway smelled of detergent and old coffee. I knocked on the door. A deep voice said, "Come in." I entered. Roy was a man in his 50s, thin, with glasses and a short-sleeved shirt. He had an old computer on his desk and metal filing cabinets against the wall. "Have a seat, ma'am. How can I help you?" I sat down, took a deep breath, and told him everything. I told him my son was getting married, that the bride's father was a powerful, arrogant man, that I had seen him with another woman and 2 children, and that I needed to know the truth. Roy took notes. He didn't judge me. He didn't ask unnecessary questions. "Do you have a picture of the gentleman?" I showed him a photo I had found online. Mr. Sterling at a groundbreaking ceremony with his politician's smile. "Do you know where you saw him with the other woman?" "At a cafe downtown near the main square. It's called the Southern Star. Do you remember the day and time?" "Last Friday, around 4 o'clock in the afternoon." Roy nodded. "I need a week. I'm going to follow him. I'll find out everything I can. If he has another family, I'll prove it. If there's more, that too, ma'am. A man who cheats so openly usually has more secrets. Financial problems, debts, shady business dealings. I'll check everything." I felt a chill. "How much do you charge?" $5,000 a week, plus expenses. It wasn't cheap, but I paid it because my son's peace of mind was priceless. That week was one of the hardest of my life. Tadeo came home every day excited about the wedding plans. He showed me photos of the venue, the menu, the flowers. Sophia and he had chosen white roses. Their song would be a classic jazz standard. "Mom, are we going to dance to that song together?" "Yes, you and I, like when you were little." I smiled, nodded, but inside, I was dying of anxiety. What if what Roy discovered destroyed everything? What if Sophia suffered because of her father? What if Tadeo hated me for interfering? But then I remembered that phrase Mr. Sterling had said to my son. "I hope you know my daughter is accustomed to a certain standard of living. Not just anyone can support her." And my anxiety turned to rage. That man had humiliated Tadeo from the start. He had treated him like he was less than, as if he didn't deserve Sophia. Well, if I was going to uncover something, it wasn't going to be to destroy the wedding. It was going to be to protect my son from a family of lies. On Friday of that week, Roy called me. "Mrs. Jackson, I need you to come to my office. I have information." I arrived in less than an hour. I climbed the stairs almost running. I walked in without knocking. Roy was sitting in front of his computer. He looked at me seriously. "Have a seat." I sat down. My hands were shaking. "What did you find?" Roy turned the screen toward me. "Mr. Humphrey Sterling has 2 families." I felt the air escape my chest. On the screen were photos. Photos of Mr. Sterling with that woman entering an apartment building in a middle-class neighborhood, taking the children to school, kissing her in a supermarket parking lot. "Who is she?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Her name is Veronica Campos. She's 32, an accountant, and she works at Mr. Sterling's company, Sterling and Associates, and the children are his, a 7-year-old boy and a 5-year-old girl. They're registered with the mother's last name, but I investigated. Mr. Sterling pays the apartment rent, pays for the children's private school, buys them clothes, toys, everything." "With what money?" Roy looked at me intently. "With company money." I felt the world stop. "What?" Roy took out a folder and opened it. Inside were documents, bank statements, wire transfers. Mr. Sterling has been diverting money from the company for years. He makes transfers to personal accounts. He uses corporate cards for personal expenses. He pays for trips, hotels, expensive restaurants, all with money from Sterling and Associates. And the company? Roy sighed. It's in serious trouble. It has debts to suppliers, labor lawsuits, 3 unfinished projects, and there are 2 criminal complaints against him for fraud. I put my hands to my face. Oh my God. That's not all, Roy said. What else? Mr. Sterling has personal debts, 2 maxed-out credit cards, a bank loan for over $2 million, and he owes taxes to the IRS from 3 years ago. How much does he owe in total? Roy checked his notes. Approximately $12 million. The company is on the verge of bankruptcy. It has 6 months, maybe a year. After that, total collapse. I sat in silence, looking at those documents, those photos, that dark truth. Humphrey Sterling was not the successful man everyone thought. He was a liar, a thief, a fraud, and my son was about to marry his daughter. Roy handed me copies of everything: photos, documents, transfer receipts, expense records. It was all there. What are you going to do with this? He asked me. I don't know, I replied, my voice broken. I need to think. Ma'am, I'm going to tell you something. You hired me to find the truth, and the truth is ugly, but now that you have it, you have to decide what to do with it. I know. If I tell my son before the wedding, maybe he'll cancel everything, and maybe that's for the best. But it could also destroy his relationship with Sophia. I know. If you don't say anything, your son is going to enter a corrupt family. And when everything explodes, because it will explode, he'll be caught in the middle. I closed my eyes. And if I tell Mr. Sterling? Roy shook his head. A man like that won't accept that he's been discovered. He'll deny everything. He'll threaten you. He'll try to destroy you. So what do I do? Roy leaned back in his chair. Wait. Observe. And when the right moment comes, act. I left that office with a folder full of secrets. I walked aimlessly through the downtown streets. The sun was setting behind the buildings. The lights of the food vendors were turning on. People walked quickly, rushing to get home. I walked slowly, carrying a burden I didn't know how to let go of. I thought of Tadeo, his smile, his excitement. I thought of Sophia, her innocence. It wasn't her fault she had a father like that. I thought of Mrs. Sterling, her silent sadness. Maybe she knew. Maybe she had been quiet for years. And I thought of Humphrey Sterling. His arrogance, his hypocrisy, his cruelty, and I decided something. I wasn't going to say anything before the wedding. I was going to wait. I was going to observe. And if Mr. Sterling dared to humiliate my son again, then I was going to destroy him with the truth. I got home after dark. I put the folder at the bottom of my closet, beneath some old blankets. I sat on my bed, looked out the window. The city lights flickered like distant stars, and took a deep breath, because I knew what was coming was going to change everything. The following weeks were a silent torture. Every time I saw Tadeo, I smiled. Every time Sophia came to visit, I hugged her. Every time someone mentioned the wedding, I nodded enthusiastically. But inside, I carried that secret like a stone in my chest. I slept poorly, ate little. I woke up in the early hours and sat in the kitchen, looking at that folder I had hidden in my closet. Sometimes I took it out, reviewed the photos, the documents, the bank transfers. Everything was there, every lie, every betrayal. And I wondered, why don't I say anything? But the answer was always the same. Because if I did it now, Tadeo would hate me. He would think I was sabotaging his happiness. And Sophia would be devastated. No, I had to wait for the right moment, and that moment would come. One Saturday morning, Sophia called me. Mrs. Jackson, can we meet? I need to talk to you. Of course, honey. What happened? It's about my dad. I'd rather tell you in person. We agreed to meet at a cafe near my house. I arrived before her and ordered an Americano. I sat by the window. When Sophia arrived, her eyes were red. She had been crying. She sat across from me, took a deep breath, and said, "My dad wants to control everything about the wedding." "What do you mean?" "He wants to choose the guest list. He wants only important people to go. He says he doesn't want common people at his event." I felt the anger rise in my throat. "Common people?" Sophia nodded, wiping her tears with a napkin. "I told him I wanted to invite Tadeo's cousins, his aunts and uncles, his friends from college, and my dad said, 'No, Sophia, this wedding is a social event, not a block party.'" I gripped my coffee cup so hard I thought it would break. "And what does your mom say?" "Nothing. My mom never says anything. She always does what he says." Exactly as I had imagined. "Sophia, listen to me," I said, taking her hands. "This wedding is yours, and Tadeo's, not your father's. If he wants to control everything, then maybe you should get married another way." She shook her head. "I can't. My dad threatened not to pay for anything if I don't do things his way, and Tadeo and I don't have the money to have a wedding like this. It would take us years to save up." "Then do it small, with the people you truly love, with dignity." Sophia looked at me with those sad eyes, so much like her mother's. "Mrs. Jackson, I just want my dad to be proud of me, just once, but no matter what I do, it's never enough for him." My heart broke because I understood something. Sophia wasn't just trapped by money. She was trapped by the love she never received from her father, and that was worse than any debt. That afternoon, when I returned home, I took out the folder again. I looked at the photos of Mr. Sterling with that other woman, with those children Sophia didn't even know existed, and I thought, that man doesn't deserve his daughter's love. But I still couldn't tell her, because destroying the image Sophia had of her father before the wedding would be cruel. She needed strength to get married. She needed hope. There would be time for the truth later. 2 weeks before the wedding, there was a rehearsal dinner at the Sterling's house. Tadeo invited me. I didn't want to go, but he insisted. "Mom, please, I want you to get to know Sophia's family better. Mr. Sterling said he wants to talk to you." That made me nervous, but I accepted. The Sterling's house was in a wealthy neighborhood. It was huge. 3 stories, a garden with a fountain, a 4-car garage. When I arrived, a staff member opened the door. "Good evening, ma'am. Please come in." I entered. The floor was marble. The walls had enormous paintings. Everything smelled like money, but I knew the truth. All of it was built on lies. Mrs. Sterling greeted me in the living room. She was an elegant woman, about 55, with perfectly styled hair and a beige dress. "Mrs. Jackson, how lovely to see you. Please come in." She greeted me with a kiss on the cheek. Her perfume was expensive, but her gaze was empty. "Thank you for the invitation," I said. "It's a pleasure. Sophia speaks highly of you." We sat down. There were appetizers, red wine, imported cheeses, everything served by staff who moved in silence. Tadeo was sitting next to Sophia, holding her hand. She was smiling, but looked tense, and then Mr. Sterling appeared. He walked in with the same old arrogance. Dark suit, gold watch, salesman's smile. "Mrs. Jackson, how nice to have you in our home." I stood up. He extended his hand and I shook it firmly. "Thank you for having me." Sit down, sit down. We'll have dinner in a few minutes. But first, I want to make a toast." Mr. Sterling took a glass of wine. We all followed suit. "I want to toast my daughter, Sophia," he said, looking at her. "She has always been my pride and joy, smart, beautiful, well-educated, and now she's about to get married." He paused. He looked at Tadeo. "To a hard-working, humble young man from a good family." The word humble sounded like an insult. Tadeo lowered his gaze. I clenched my glass. Mr. Sterling continued, "I hope this marriage is the beginning of something great, because in this family we value effort, hard work, ambition." He looked me straight in the eye. "Don't you agree, Mrs. Jackson?" I held his gaze. "I believe the most valuable thing in this life is honesty." There was an awkward silence. Mr. Sterling smiled, but his eyes turned cold. "Of course, honesty. How important." We toasted, but I knew I had just thrown down a warning, and he knew it too. During dinner, Mr. Sterling talked nonstop about his businesses, his contacts, the projects he had built, and the politicians he knew. "I have a new project," he said, cutting his steak. "A residential development in Houston, 500 houses. It's going to be my biggest venture yet." Mrs. Sterling smiled faintly. "That's wonderful, dear." But I thought, with what money, if you're broke? Tadeo listened attentively. Sophia ate in silence. And I just watched. I watched how easily Mr. Sterling lied, how his wife pretended everything was fine, how Sophia swallowed her sadness with every bite. That entire family lived a lie, and I was about to destroy it. But not yet. Not yet. At the end of dinner, Mr. Sterling asked to speak to me alone. "Mrs. Jackson, would you accompany me to my study?" I nodded. I followed him down a long hallway to a room with wood shelves, books he had never read, and an enormous desk. He closed the door. "Have a seat." I sat down. He remained standing, looking down at me. "I want to talk to you about Tadeo." "I'm listening." "He's a good boy, hard-working, respectful, but—" He paused. "But he has no future." I felt my blood boil. "Excuse me?" "He has no future," he repeated. "He earns little. He doesn't own property. He doesn't have big ambitions. And my daughter deserves more." I stood up. "My son has something you will never understand. He has values, he has dignity, he has true love." Mr. Sterling laughed. "Love doesn't pay the bills, Mrs. Jackson." "No, but honesty brings peace." He moved closer to me. His voice turned cold. "Look, I'll be clear. I paid for this wedding. I pay for everything. And when they get married, Sophia is going to keep depending on me because your son can't support her. So you better understand who's in charge here." I stared at him. I understand perfectly who thinks they're in charge. I left that study without saying anything else. I walked down the stairs. Tadeo saw me and approached. "Mom, are you okay?" "Yes, son, just tired. Let's go." We said our goodbyes. We got in the car. Tadeo drove in silence. When we arrived at my house, he said, "Mom, I know Mr. Sterling is difficult, but I'm doing this for Sophia. She's worth it." I hugged him. "I know, son, I know." But inside, I was thinking, "Humphrey Sterling, your time has come. Just wait for the wedding day." As I tell all this, I wonder where you are listening to me. Have you also met someone like that? Someone who uses money to control, who humiliates in the name of success? Write the name of your city in the comments. I want to know where you are listening to me. The week before the wedding was chaos. Tadeo barely slept. He had to finish a project at work and, at the same time, sort out the last details of the ceremony. I saw him exhausted, stressed, but happy. "Mom, I'm getting married in a week," he would tell me with that smile that melted my heart. I can't believe it. I made him coffee, ironed his shirt for the suit fitting, and went with him to buy the rings. And all the while, I carried that secret that weighed more heavily every day. But something was changing inside me. It was no longer just rage against Mr. Sterling. It was a need for justice. Because the more I saw him act, the more I realized that this man wasn't just deceiving his family, he was deceiving everyone. And worse, he enjoyed doing it. On Tuesday of that week, I received an unexpected call. It was Roy, the investigator. "Mrs. Jackson, I need to see you. I found something else." "What did you find?" "I'd rather tell you in person. Can you come to my office this afternoon?" I went. I climbed those same stairs I knew so well. The smell of detergent and old coffee was still there. Roy was waiting for me with another folder. "Have a seat," he said in a serious voice. I sat down, my hands trembling. "What is it?" Roy opened the folder, taking out new documents. "I investigated the finances of Sterling and Associates more thoroughly, and I found something serious." "What?" "Mr. Sterling is not only diverting money for his other family, he's also involved in construction fraud." I gasped. "What kind of fraud?" 2 years ago, he won a bid to build a housing complex in the state of Georgia. 120 affordable homes. The government gave him a down payment of $25 million, and he only built 40 houses. The other 80 were never finished. He kept the money. He claimed there were problems with suppliers, that material costs went up, that there were delays, but it was all a lie. My God! There are families who paid a down payment, who waited years and never got their house. Now there's a class action lawsuit against him and an investigation by the Anti-Corruption Bureau. I felt the floor moving beneath my feet. When is that going to blow up? Roy checked his notes. According to my sources, the Bureau is going to issue an arrest warrant in the next 3 months, maybe sooner. 3 months? Yes. Mr. Sterling is living his final days of freedom. I remained silent. Roy continued, and there's more. The company is technically bankrupt. Employees haven't been paid their full salary in 2 months. Machinery has been repossessed, 3 projects have stalled, and the bank has already started collection proceedings for the loan I mentioned. And Mr. Sterling keeps spending like nothing's wrong. Exactly. Last week he bought a new car, a BMW. He paid for it in cash. Where did he get that money? Roy looked at me intently. Probably from the company till or some hidden account. This man is an expert at hiding money. I closed my eyes. And his wife, Mrs. Sterling, does she know anything about this? I don't know, but I doubt it. She comes from a traditional conservative family. If she knew her husband had another family, she probably would have divorced him or at least confronted him, but there are no signs of that. So she lives deceived, like many wives of men like that. I sighed. What else did you find? Roy took out more photos. He had been following Mr. Sterling all week. He goes to Veronica's apartment 3 times a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. He arrives around 7 in the evening and stays until 11, sometimes later, and his wife doesn't suspect anything. He tells her he has meetings, business dinners, client gatherings, and she believes him, or pretends to. I looked at the photos. Mr. Sterling entering the building, kissing Veronica on the balcony, playing with the children at the park, and I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time, disgust. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stayed awake, sitting on my bed looking out the window. Outside, the city slept. The lights of the buildings flickered. The silence was profound, and I thought about Tadeo, his excitement, his love for Sophia. I thought about Sophia, her innocence, how desperately she sought the love of a father who didn't deserve it. I thought about Mrs. Sterling, her silence, her sadness. I thought about those children, Mr. Sterling's secret children, growing up without a present father, living in the shadows. And I thought about all those families who lost their savings, who waited years for a house that never came, who trusted a man who stole from them. And I understood something. This was no longer just about protecting my son. It was about doing justice. Humphrey Sterling had built his life on lies. He had trampled everyone in his path. He had used money, power, and arrogance to get away with it, and no one had stopped him until now. On Thursday afternoon, 2 days before the wedding, I went to visit a friend. Her name was Teresa. I had known her for 20 years. She was a lawyer, specializing in family law. We sat in her office. I told her everything. I showed her the folders, the documents, the photos. Teresa reviewed everything carefully. She didn't say anything for several minutes. Finally, she looked up. "Frida, this is explosive." "I know. If you make this public, you're going to destroy that family." "I know. Are you sure you want to do it?" I remained silent. Teresa continued, "Look, I understand you want to protect your son, but think about Sophia. It's not her fault she has a father like that. If you reveal this on the wedding day, you're going to ruin the most important day of her life." "And if I don't say anything," I replied, "what if I let Tadeo enter that family of lies? And what if Mr. Sterling keeps humiliating him? What if he uses him? What if he destroys his self-esteem?" Teresa sighed. "It's a difficult decision." "No, it's not anymore." "What do you mean?" I looked at her fixedly. "Mr. Sterling challenged me. He told me he was in charge, that my son wasn't enough, and he planned to humiliate him at his own wedding. How do you know that? I know him. Men like him can't help it. They always need to demonstrate their power. Teresa nodded. And what are you going to do? I'm going to wait. I'm going to go to that wedding. And if Mr. Sterling dares to humiliate my son again, then I'm going to reveal everything. In public? Teresa looked at me with concern. Frida, that's going to be brutal. I know. The consequences are going to be huge. I know. And are you willing to live with that? I took a deep breath. Yes, because the truth is always better than a lie, even if it hurts. Teresa was silent. Then she said, Then you need to be prepared, because when you reveal that, Mr. Sterling is going to deny everything. He'll try to discredit you. He'll say you're crazy, you're jealous, that you made it all up. That's why I brought proof. Proof helps, but it's not always enough. You need witnesses. You need someone else to confirm what you're saying. Who? Teresa thought for a moment. Do you know anyone who works at Mr. Sterling's company? I shook my head. No. Then you'll have to trust that the evidence speaks for itself. I nodded. It will. I left that office with absolute clarity. I knew what I had to do. I went to a print shop. I had copies made of all the documents, photos, bank statements, transfers, everything. I prepared 3 envelopes, one for Taddeo, one for Sophia, one for Mrs. Sterling. I put them in my purse and waited. On Friday night, the day before the wedding, Taddeo came over for dinner at my house. He was nervous but excited. Mom, tomorrow's the day. I can't believe it's here. I served him chicken, his favorite since he was a kid. Are you ready? I asked him. I think so. Well, I'm nervous, but happy, very happy. And Sophia? She is too, although she's a little stressed. Her dad still wants to control everything. I felt a knot in my stomach. What did he do now? Nothing serious. He just wants to give a long speech. He says he has important things to say. There was the confirmation I needed. Mr. Sterling was going to use that microphone to humiliate my son. I knew it, and I was going to be ready. That night, after Taddeo left, I took out the 3 envelopes, placed them on the kitchen table, and looked at them for hours, asking myself, am I doing the right thing? But then I remembered everything. I remembered the families that lost their homes. I remembered those children growing up without a father. I remembered Mrs. Sterling living a lie. I remembered Sophia seeking the love of a man incapable of giving it. And I remembered Taddeo, my son, my boy, the good, honest, hard-working man that monster had called an idiot. And I knew the answer. Yes, I was doing the right thing, because justice is not always comfortable, but it is always necessary. I went to sleep late that night and dreamt about the next day. I dreamt of Mr. Sterling taking that microphone. I dreamt of his arrogant smile. I dreamt of his poisonous words. And I dreamt of the moment when I would stand up, snatch that microphone, and tell the truth that would destroy his world of lies. And when I woke up, I knew that dream was going to come true, because the moment had arrived, the moment of justice. The wedding day dawned with a clear sky. It was Saturday. The sun shone over the city. It was warm, but there was a gentle breeze moving my window curtains. I got up early. I hadn't slept well. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the same scene. Mr. Sterling at the microphone, his cruel words, Taddeo's face sinking in shame, but I also saw myself standing up, taking that microphone, and telling the truth. I made coffee, sat in the kitchen, and looked at the 3 envelopes I had left on the table. One for Taddeo, one for Sophia, one for Mrs. Sterling. I picked them up, put them in my purse along with the copies of all the documents, and took a deep breath. Today, everything changes, I thought. The religious ceremony would be at 5 in the afternoon at St. Augustine's Parish, the reception at 7 at the Country Club Hall. Taddeo had asked me to get to the church early. Mom, I want you to be with me before I walk in. Seeing you gives me a lot of peace. I arrived at 4. The church was decorated with white roses and ivory ribbons. It smelled of incense and fresh flowers. Everything was elegant, impeccable. Tadeo was in a side room with his best man. When he saw me, he smiled. "Mom," I approached. I hugged him. He smelled of new cologne. He was nervous. His hands were shaking a little. "How do you feel?" I asked him. Nervous, happy, scared, all at the same time. I took his hands. "Tadeo, I want you to know something. No matter what happens today, I will always be on your side. Always." He looked at me strangely. "No matter what happens? Mom, are you okay?" I smiled. "Yes, son. I just wanted to tell you." I hugged him again, and I felt my heart break because I knew that after today, nothing would ever be the same. The ceremony was beautiful. Sophia walked in on Mr. Sterling's arm. She wore a white dress, simple but elegant. Her veil fell like a cascade of lace. She was radiant. Mr. Sterling walked with that chest inflated with pride, as if he were presenting a trophy, not his daughter. When they reached the altar, Father Michael blessed the union. Tadeo and Sophia exchanged vows. They looked at each other with true, genuine, pure love, and I, sitting in the third row, cried. I cried out of happiness for my son, and I cried out of sadness because I knew what was coming. The reception at the country club began exactly at 7. The hall was huge, round tables with white tablecloths, centerpieces with roses and candles, a dance floor in the center, a stage with a microphone and speakers. There were more than 200 guests, business owners, politicians, wealthy families, all dressed in expensive suits and designer dresses. And then there was us. My family, Tadeo's cousins, his college friends, his best man who was an electrician, his maid of honor who worked at a stationery store. You could see the difference. 2 worlds in the same room. But Tadeo didn't seem to notice. He was happy, dancing with Sophia, laughing with his friends, hugging his aunts and uncles. I sat at a side table. I watched everything and waited. Dinner passed without incident. They served steak and potatoes, salad, mushroom soup, everything delicious. People ate, talked, laughed. And then the moment for toasts arrived. The master of ceremonies took the microphone. "Good evening, everyone. It is an honor to be here celebrating the union of Tadeo and Sophia. At this time, the bride's father, Mr. Humphrey Sterling, has a few words to share." My heart started beating faster. Mr. Sterling stood up, walked toward the stage, took the microphone, smiled, and began to speak. "Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this special night." Applause. As a father, this is a bittersweet moment because today I give away my daughter, my princess, my pride. He looked at Sophia. She smiled with tears in her eyes. Then he looked at Tadeo, and his expression changed. Sophia has always been very special, smart, beautiful, capable. She could have chosen anyone. Anyone. Pause. But she chose Tadeo. Nervous laughs. And well, Tadeo is a hard-working boy. I can't deny that. He comes from a humble but honest family. The word humble sounded like poison. Tadeo lowered his gaze. His face went pale. Sophia took his hand, but she looked uncomfortable. Mr. Sterling continued. But Sophia insisted. And well, when a woman sets her mind on something, there's no way to change it. More laughter, but this time it was cruel. So tonight, on this very special day, I want to toast my daughter to her courage, to her stubbornness. He raised his glass. And I want to say something I've already told my family in private. He looked directly at Tadeo. That boy is an idiot, but my daughter insisted on marrying him. The room erupted in laughter. Some guests applauded, others looked at each other uncomfortably, but I felt something inside me break. I looked at Tadeo. His eyes were glassy, his hands clenched into fists, his jaw tight. Sophia hugged him, whispering something in his ear. Mrs. Sterling was looking at her plate, embarrassed, And Mr. Sterling kept smiling, enjoying his moment of power. Then I stood up. My legs were shaking, but I walked toward the stage. Everyone looked at me. Mr. Sterling saw me approaching. His smile faded. "Mrs. Jackson, what are you doing?" I didn't answer. I climbed onto the stage and snatched the microphone from his hands. "Excuse me, Mr. Sterling, but now it's my turn to speak." The hall went absolutely silent. I looked at all the guests. 200 people staring at me. I took a deep breath and spoke. "Good evening. My name is Frida Jackson. I am Tadeo's mother." My voice trembled, but it was firm. "A few minutes ago, Mr. Sterling called my son an idiot in front of all of you, in front of his own daughter, on their wedding day." Silence. "And I want to say something. My son is not an idiot. My son is an honest, hard-working, upright man, a man who pays his debts, who keeps his word, who respects women, who loves with his whole heart." I looked at Mr. Sterling. "But you, Mr. Sterling, you don't know what it is to be a real man." His face turned red. "How dare you?" "I dare because I have proof." I pulled the documents out of my purse and held them up high. "For the past few weeks, I've investigated your life, and I found things that everyone here should know." Mrs. Sterling stood up from her chair, pale. "What are you saying?" I looked at the guests. "Humphrey Sterling has 2 families." Gasps, murmurs. "He has a wife here, Mrs. Sterling, and he has another woman, Veronica Campos, with whom he has 2 children, a 7-year-old boy, a 5-year-old girl." Mrs. Sterling covered her mouth with her hands. Her eyes filled with tears. Mr. Sterling tried to snatch the microphone from me. "That's a lie! She's crazy!" I dodged him. "A lie? I have photos. I have addresses. I have bank transfer receipts." I showed the photos. People stood up to see. "Mr. Sterling pays Veronica's apartment rent, pays for his children's school. He pays for everything." "With what money?" "With money from his company, Sterling and Associates." The company employees who were there looked at each other. "But that's not all," I continued. "Mr. Sterling is also a thief." "Shut up!" Mr. Sterling yelled. 2 years ago, he won a bid to build 120 affordable homes. He received $25 million from the government. How many houses did he build? 40? And he stole the rest of the money. Shouts, indignation. "There are families who paid down payments, who waited years and never got their house because this man stole their money." Mr. Sterling tried to leave the stage, but people surrounded him. "I demand proof!" he shouted. "Here it is!" I handed copies of the documents to the nearest guests. They passed from hand to hand, bank statements, transfers, photos, everything. Mrs. Sterling was crying inconsolably. Sophia hugged her in shock. Tadeo looked at me, paralyzed, and I continued. "The company, Sterling and Associates, is bankrupt. It owes more than $12 million. There are repossessions, lawsuits, and an investigation by the Anti-Corruption Bureau. In the coming months, Mr. Sterling will be arrested because justice, though slow, always comes." I looked Mr. Sterling straight in the eye. "You called my son an idiot, but the real idiot is you, because you built your life on lies, and lies always crumble." I placed the microphone on the stage, got down, and walked toward Tadeo. I hugged him. "I'm sorry, son, but I couldn't let him humiliate you again." Tadeo hugged me back, crying, "Mom, is all that true?" "Yes, son, all of it." The hall turned into chaos. People were talking, shouting, leaving. Mr. Sterling tried to defend himself, but no one believed him. Mrs. Sterling left with her sisters. Sophia ran after her. Tadeo stood in the middle of the empty hall, watching everything fall apart. And I knew I had done the right thing, even if it hurt, even if everything had been destroyed, because the truth is always better than a lie, always. I still wonder if I did the right thing. And what would you have done in my place? That night, there was no party, no dancing, no music, no laughter, only the echo of the truth bouncing against the walls of the empty hall. The guests left one by one, some indignant, others ashamed, others curious, checking their phones to confirm what they had just heard. The tables were half-eaten, the champagne flutes full, the white roses wilting under the lights no one turned off. And in the midst of all that silent chaos were us. Taddeo, sitting in a chair with his head in his hands. Sophia, standing next to him, crying silently. Mrs. Sterling in a corner, being comforted by her sisters. And Mr. Sterling. Mr. Sterling had vanished. He left as soon as he could, without giving explanations, without asking for forgiveness, without looking back, as cowards do. I approached Taddeo. I knelt in front of him. "Son." He didn't answer. "Taddeo, look at me." He raised his face. His eyes were red, his jaw clenched. "Why, Mom? Why did you do it?" His voice was broken, full of pain. "Because I couldn't let that man humiliate you again." "But you destroyed my wedding. You destroyed everything." "No, son, I didn't destroy anything. He did years ago. I just brought the truth to light. You could have told me sooner. You could have warned me in private. I tried, but you were so in love, so hopeful. You didn't want to see the signs." Taddeo stood up, walked toward the window. He looked out at the night without seeing it. "Sophia hates me now." "No, son, she doesn't hate you. Her family is destroyed because of you." "No, her family was destroyed years ago. No one just wanted to see it." Taddeo turned toward me. There was rage in his eyes. "You had no right, Mom. You had no right to do that." Those words hurt me more than any blow. I had every right. I am your mother, and my job is to protect you, even if you don't understand it now. Protect me? You just embarrassed me in front of 200 people. No, Taddeo. The one who embarrassed you was Mr. Sterling. I just defended your dignity. He stood quiet, breathing heavily. Then he said in a low voice, "I need to be alone." And he left the hall. I remained standing there, watching my son walk away, and I felt my heart split in two. Sophia approached me. Her makeup was smeared, her dress wrinkled, her eyes swollen from crying. "Mrs. Jackson," I turned toward her. "Sophia, It's true?" She interrupted. "Is everything you said true?" I looked into her eyes. "Yes, it's true." She put her hands to her face. She sobbed. "I can't believe it. My dad has another family. He has other children, and I never knew anything." "I'm sorry, Sophia. How long have you known?" "For a few weeks." "And why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Because I didn't want to ruin your day. But when your father humiliated Taddeo, I couldn't stay quiet." Sophia shook her head. "My mom is devastated. My sisters are furious, and I don't know what to feel." She slumped into a chair. "My whole life, I thought my dad was a hero, a successful, respected man. And it turns out he's a liar, a thief, a monster." I sat next to her, taking her hand. "Your father is responsible for his own decisions. It's not your fault at all." "But I feel like it is. I feel like I should have seen the signs, the lies, the absences. You couldn't see them because you trusted him, and that's not your fault. That's what love does. It makes you blind." Sophia looked at me with those eyes full of pain. "And now what am I going to do? How am I going to look Taddeo in the eye? How am I going to—" She broke down again. I hugged her, letting her cry on my shoulder, and I thought, this girl doesn't deserve this, but life doesn't always give us what we deserve. Mrs. Sterling approached after a while. Her sisters had left. She was alone. She walked slowly, as if every step hurt her. "Mrs. Jackson." I stood up. "Mrs. Sterling." We looked at each other in silence. 2 women, 2 mothers, 2 survivors. "Is it true?" she asked in a trembling voice. "Everything you said?" "It's true, yes." She closed her eyes. A tear rolled down her cheek. I suspected it. For years. But I never wanted to confirm it. I'm sorry. No, you're not sorry. She looked at me harshly. You came here to destroy my family. No, I came to protect my son and destroy my daughter in the process. Your daughter is going to be fine because she has something her husband never gave her. She has the truth. Mrs. Sterling laughed, but it was a bitter, joyless laugh. The truth! And what good is the truth now? My marriage is a lie. My life is a lie. Everything I built crumbled in one night. It didn't crumble years ago. You just didn't want to see it. She looked at me with rage. Who are you to judge me? I'm not judging you. I understand why you stayed quiet. Out of fear, out of shame for the children, I understand. But that doesn't change the fact that your husband is a fraud. Mrs. Sterling took a deep breath. I want to see the proof. I handed her the envelope with her name on it. She opened it. She reviewed the photos, the documents, the transfers. I watched as her face changed, from pain to rage, from rage to resignation. When she finished, she closed the envelope. What are you going to do with this? I asked her. I don't know, but I'll tell you one thing. Humphrey Sterling is no longer my husband. I don't know if he ever was. She turned and left, and I stayed there, alone, surrounded by the remnants of a wedding that never finished. I left the hall at 11 at night. Outside, the air was cool, the sky was clear, the stars were shining. I walked to my car, my legs were shaking, and my hands too. I sat in the driver's seat, closed the door, and finally allowed myself to cry. I cried for Tadeo, for his pain, for his rage. I cried for Sophia, for her lost innocence. I cried for Mrs. Sterling, for all those years of lies. And I cried for myself because I knew I had done the right thing, but I also knew I had lost something in the process. I had lost my son's trust, and that hurt more than anything. I got home after midnight. I went inside, closed the door, and took off my shoes. The house was empty, silent, cold. I sat on the sofa, looked at the ceiling, and thought, was it worth it? I didn't know yet. Maybe I never would. But there was something I did know. The truth always has a price, and I had just paid it. On Sunday morning, Tadeo didn't call me, nor on Monday, nor on Tuesday. A week passed, then 2, and nothing. I tried calling him. He didn't answer. I sent him messages. He didn't reply. I went to his apartment. He didn't open the door. And I understood. My son didn't want to see me. Not yet. Maybe never. In those weeks, the scandal broke. Newspapers published articles about Humphrey Sterling, about the fraud, about the unfinished homes, about the affected families. Some of those families contacted me. They thanked me for revealing the truth. They told me they had been waiting years for justice. The Anti-Corruption Bureau sped up the investigation. 2 months later, Mr. Sterling was arrested. I saw it on the news, handcuffed, walking toward a police car with his head down. He was no longer the arrogant man from the wedding day. He was just a broken, defeated man. And I didn't feel satisfaction. I only felt sadness, because justice had come, but at a very high cost. Sophia called me one afternoon. Mrs. Jackson, can we talk? Of course, honey. We met at a cafe, the same one where we had talked weeks ago. She looked tired, thinner, but also stronger. I want to thank you, she told me. Thank me? Yes, for telling the truth. Even though it hurt, even though it destroyed my world, you did what no one else had the courage to do. How is your mom? She filed for divorce. She moved in with my grandmother. She's processing everything, but I think she's going to be okay. And you? I'm processing too. Discovering that you have 2 siblings you never knew is strange, but I met Veronica and the kids. Seriously? Yes, they're good kids. And Veronica, she didn't know my dad was married either. He told her he was divorced. I sighed. Your father deceived everyone. I know, and now he's paying for it. She was silent for a moment, then asked, How's Tadeo? I don't know. He won't talk to me? I know. He won't talk to me either. We looked at each other, two women who had lost the same man for different reasons. Give him time, Sophia said. Tadeo is good, and when the anger passes, he'll understand. I hope you're right. I am, because if there's one thing I learned from all this, it's that the truth, even if it hurts, always makes us stronger. I smiled for the first time in weeks. You're very wise, Sophia. No, I just learned from the best. She took my hand. Thank you, Mrs. Jackson, for protecting Tadeo and for protecting me too, even if I didn't see it at the time. And there, in that cafe, with the sun streaming through the window, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Tadeo finally called me 3 months later. Mom! Just hearing his voice made me cry. Son, can we see each other? Of course, whenever you want. Tomorrow at your house. Yes. He arrived at 6 in the afternoon with Sophia. They came holding hands. I opened the door. I looked at them. There was so much to say, so much to explain, but Tadeo just hugged me and said, Forgive me, Mom, for everything I said to you, for how I treated you. You were right about everything. I cried on his shoulder. No, son, forgive me for ruining your wedding. You didn't ruin anything. You saved my life, our lives. Sophia nodded. It's true, Mrs. Jackson. If you hadn't spoken up, I would have kept living a lie. And Tadeo would have suffered years of humiliation. We sat in the living room. I made them coffee, like in the old days. And Tadeo told me, Mom, I learned something. I learned that sometimes love also means telling difficult truths, even if they hurt, even if they push us away for a while. And the wedding? I asked. Tadeo and Sophia looked at each other. We're getting married again, Sophia said. Small, just close family, true friends, no lies, no appearances, and no Mr. Sterling, Tadeo added. I smiled. That sounds perfect. That night when they left, I sat in the living room looking out the window, the city lights, the dark sky, and I thought about everything that had happened. I had lost a lot. My son's trust for a while, the illusion of a perfect wedding, the peace of my conscience. But I had also gained something. I had gained the certainty that I did the right thing, because defending those you love is not always easy, but it is always necessary. And the truth, even if it hurts, always sets us free. Always. The months that followed were about rebuilding, not just for Tadeo and Sophia, but for me too, because I discovered something I didn't expect. That telling the truth doesn't make you a hero. It makes you an uncomfortable witness, someone everyone respects, but few want to be around. Some people called me brave, others called me intrusive, and others simply stopped talking to me. But I learned to live with it, because inner peace is worth more than external approval. Tadeo and Sophia got married again 3 months later. It was a small ceremony in an old chapel downtown. Only 30 people, close family, true friends. There was no party hall, no gala dinner. There was no list of expensive gifts. After the ceremony, we went to eat at a family restaurant. We ate barbecue, salad, and baked beans. We drank iced tea. We laughed. We cried. We told stories. It was perfect, because it was real. When Tadeo asked me to dance with him, he put on the classic standard, the same song he had chosen for the first wedding. Mom, he said while we danced. Thank you. For what, son? For teaching me that true love isn't built on appearances. It's built on truth, even if it hurts. I hugged him tight. I will always protect you, Tadeo. Always. I know, Mom, and forgive me for not understanding it sooner. There's nothing to forgive. We danced in silence, and I felt something inside me heal, because my son had come back, and that was the only thing that mattered. Sophia also sought me out that day. Mrs. Jackson, can I talk to you? We went out to the restaurant garden. There were flowers blooming. The air smelled of damp earth and purple blossoms. What is it, honey? I want to tell you something about my dad. What happened? Sophia took a deep breath. I went to visit him in jail. I was surprised. You went? Yes, 2 weeks ago. And how was it? Horrible, but necessary. She sat on a bench. I sat next to her. When I went into the visitation room, I barely recognized him. He was thin, emaciated, wearing the orange prison uniform. He no longer looked like the powerful man everyone knew. What did he tell you? At first, nothing. He just looked at me as if he couldn't believe I was there. Sophia wiped away a tear. Then he said, Sophia, forgive me. Forgive me for everything. And what did you tell him? I told him the truth. I said, Dad, I don't know if I can forgive you. You lied to me my whole life. You lied to Mom. You lied to Veronica, to those kids, to the families who trusted you. You destroyed lives, including your own. How did he react? He cried. It was the first time in my life I saw my dad cry. He told me I was right, that he had been a coward, that he had built his life on lies because he was afraid of not being enough. Sophia looked at me. He told me he was always afraid that people would discover who he really was, a poor kid from a small town who pretended to be rich his whole life, who bought things he couldn't afford to impress people he didn't care about. I felt a pang of sadness. And what did you feel? I felt pity, because I understood that my dad wasn't a monster. He was a broken man who made terrible decisions, and now he's paying for them. Did you forgive him? Sophia shook her head. Not yet, but I will someday, because holding a grudge only hurts me, not him. I smiled. You're very wise, Sophia. I learned from you. You taught me that the truth, even if it hurts, always sets us free. She took my hand. Thank you, Mrs. Jackson, for not staying quiet, for defending Tadeo, and for defending me too, even though I didn't ask for it. I hugged her. I'll always be here for you two. That night, when I returned home, I sat in the kitchen with a cup of chamomile tea. I looked out the window. The moon was full. It illuminated the empty streets, and I thought about everything that had happened. I thought about Mr. Sterling, how he had built an empire of lies that crumbled in one night. I thought about Mrs. Sterling, how she had found the courage to divorce and start over at 55. I thought about Sophia, how she had transformed her pain into wisdom. And I thought about Tadeo, how he had learned that true love doesn't need luxury, it only needs truth. And then I understood something. Justice doesn't always arrive quickly, but it always arrives. A few weeks later, I received a letter. It came from the Anti-Corruption Bureau. They asked me to testify as a witness in the case against Humphrey Sterling. I accepted. I went to the courthouse one Tuesday morning. It was an old building with long hallways and gray walls. It smelled of old paper and reheated coffee. I sat in the waiting room. There were other people there. Some were families who had lost their savings because of Mr. Sterling. Others were company employees who hadn't been paid in months. An older woman approached me. You're Frida Jackson, aren't you? Yes. I'm Martha Hernandez. My husband and I paid a down payment for a house 3 years ago. We never got it. We lost all our savings. I stood up and hugged her. I am so sorry. No, thank you. Thanks to you, that man is paying for what he did. Thank you for having the courage to speak up. Other people approached, thanked me, and told me their stories, and I understood that what I had done hadn't just protected my son. It had given a voice to all those people who had been silenced. When it was my turn to testify, I went into the room. There was a judge, a prosecutor, defense attorneys, and Mr. Sterling was sitting at a table, handcuffed. He looked at me when I entered, but there was no more arrogance in his eyes, only defeat. The prosecutor asked me questions. I told him everything, how I had discovered the truth, how I had hired an investigator, how I had found the proof. I presented the documents, the photos, the transfers. Everything was recorded, documented, undeniable. When I finished, the judge thanked me. Mrs. Jackson, your testimony has been valuable. Thank you for your cooperation. I left that room with the certainty that I had done the right thing, not only as a mother, but as a citizen. 2 months later, Mr. Sterling was sentenced. 12 years in prison for fraud and embezzlement. I didn't go to the hearing, but Sophia called me to tell me. "He's in jail, Mrs. Jackson. He's going to be there a long time." "How do you feel?" "Sad, but also relieved, because there was finally justice." "And your mom?" "She's doing well. She started working. She opened a small crafts store. She says that for the first time in her life, she feels like she owns her own destiny." I smiled. "I'm happy for her." "And there's something else," Sophia said. "What?" "Veronica also distanced herself from my dad. She moved to another state with her children. She started over, and last week she wrote to me. She told me she was so sorry for everything that happened, that she didn't know the full truth either." "And what did you tell her?" "That it wasn't her fault, that my dad deceived all of us, and that I hope someday we can meet, because those kids are my siblings, and they deserve to have family." I was speechless. "Sophia, you're incredible." "No, I just learned that life is too short to hold grudges, and that true family isn't the one that shares blood. It's the one that shares truth." That night, I took a shoebox that I kept in my closet. Inside were old photos from when Tadeo was a kid, of him playing in the park, of him graduating from college. I looked at those photos and thought about everything we had been through. I thought about the nights when we didn't have money to pay the rent, the times we ate cheap meals because we couldn't afford meat, the times Tadeo asked me, "Mom, why don't we have a car like the other kids?" And I would tell him, "Because the important thing isn't what you have, son. It's who you are." I closed the box because I understood that everything I had done, all the difficult decisions I had made, all the nights I had cried alone, had been worth it, because my son was a good, honest, hard-working, upright man, and that was more valuable than any fortune. One Sunday afternoon, Tadeo and Sophia came to visit me. They brought news. "Mom, we have something to tell you," Tadeo said with a huge smile. "What is it?" Sophia touched her stomach. "I'm going to be a grandmother," I said with tears in my eyes. "Yes," Tadeo shouted, hugging me. "You're going to be a grandmother." I cried tears of joy because after so much darkness, there was finally light. After so much pain, there was finally hope. And after so much truth, there was finally peace. That night, before sleeping, I wrote something in my journal, something I wanted to always remember. Today, I learned that life doesn't always give us what we deserve. But if we are brave, if we defend the truth, if we protect those we love, life gives us something better. It gives us inner peace. And in the end, that's the only thing that matters. I closed the journal, turned off the light, and slept peacefully. For the first time in months passed. Sophia's belly grew. Tadeo was excited. He painted the baby's room blue. He bought a crib, read books on fatherhood, and I knitted little outfits, prepared blankets, and imagined what it would be like to have a grandchild. One day, Sophia called me. "Mrs. Jackson, I want to ask you something." "Tell me, honey." "When the baby is born, could you be at the birth? Since my mom will also be there, I thought it would be nice if both grandmothers were together." My eyes filled with tears. "It would be an honor." The baby was born in March, a healthy, beautiful boy with Tadeo's eyes and Sophia's nose. When I held him in my arms for the first time, I felt the world stop. He was so tiny, so fragile, so perfect. "What are you going to name him?" I asked. Tadeo and Sophia looked at each other. "We're going to name him Michael," Tadeo said. "Michael Jackson." "Why Michael?" "Because of Father Michael, the one who married us. He told us something that day that we never forgot." "What did he tell you?" Sophia answered. "He told us truth is the foundation of all true love. Without truth, there is no trust, and without trust, there is no love." Tadeo continued, "And we thought that was a good name for our son, because we want him to grow up knowing that the truth is always the most important thing." I hugged my grandson. "Welcome to the world, Michael. You're going to grow up in a family that loves you, protects you, and will always tell you the truth. Mrs. Sterling was there too. She approached and smiled at me. "Thank you, Frida." "For what?" "For saving me, for getting my family out of that lie. I didn't have the courage, but you did." I took her hand. "We all have our moment. Yours came when you decided to divorce. Mine came when I decided to speak." We hugged. 2 women, 2 survivors, 2 grandmothers. That night, when I returned home, I sat in the living room. I looked at a photo Tadeo had given me. It was of the 4 of us, him, Sophia, baby Michael, and me, all smiling. And I thought about the whole journey we had taken, from that terrible night at the country club to this moment of peace. And I understood something profound. Justice is not vengeance. Justice is restoration. It is giving people what they deserve, not out of malice, but out of balance. Humphrey Sterling deserved to pay for his lies. Mrs. Sterling deserved to live in truth. Sophia deserved to know her father as he was. And Tadeo deserved to be defended. That was justice. And I had been the instrument of that justice, not because I was special, but because I decided not to stay quiet. A few weeks later, I ran into one of the families affected by Mr. Sterling. It was at the grocery store. A woman recognized me. "You're Frida Jackson, aren't you?" "Yes. I want to thank you for speaking out, for defending the truth. Thanks to you, we recovered some of our money. Not all of it, but some." "I'm so glad. You know, I also kept silent for years. My husband was cheating on me, and I didn't say anything because I was afraid. Afraid of being alone, afraid of not being able to support my children. I understand. But when I saw what you did, when I saw that you stood up and told the truth, even if it cost you, it gave me courage, and I confronted my husband, and I got a divorce." She looked at me with tears in her eyes. "I live alone now, but I live in peace. And that is priceless." I hugged her. "I am so happy for you. Thank you for teaching me that it's never too late to tell the truth." That conversation stuck with me because I understood that what I had done hadn't only affected my family, it had inspired other women, other mothers, other survivors to speak up. And now, as I tell you this, as I remember every moment of that night that changed everything, I wonder if I would do the same thing again. And the answer is yes, 1,000 times yes, because defending those you love is not optional. It's a duty. And the truth, even if it hurts, is always better than a lie. Always. 2 years have passed since that night. 2 years since I took that microphone and told the truth. 2 years since Humphrey Sterling's world crumbled. And in those 2 years, I saw how life itself took care of doing justice, because I learned something. Karma is not vengeance. It is balance. It is life returning to everyone what they sowed. And Mr. Sterling harvested exactly what he planted. One Saturday afternoon, while I was watching Michael at the park, I received a call from Sophia. "Mrs. Jackson, can you come over to my house? I need to talk to you." "Did something happen?" "Yes, but I'd rather tell you in person." I arrived at her house an hour later. Tadeo was working. Sophia opened the door for me. She looked tired, but calm. "What happened, honey?" We sat in the living room. She made lemon tea. "My dad sent me a letter from jail." "What did he say?" Sophia took the envelope out of her purse. It was a handwritten letter. The handwriting was shaky, as if he had written it with difficulty. "Can I read it to you?" "Of course." Sophia unfolded the letter and read, "Dear Sophia, I don't know if you'll read this. I don't know if you'll ever forgive me, but I need to write to you. I've been in this cell for 2 years, 2 years with a lot of time to think, to remember, to repent. There are no luxuries here, no power, no admiration, only silence. And in that silence, I could finally hear my own conscience. I was a bad husband, a bad father, a bad man. I lied to your mother for 30 years. I took her youth, her trust, her peace. I lied to you, my daughters. I made you believe that money was the most important thing, that success was measured in big cars and houses. And I lied to Veronica and my other children. I promised them a future I could never give them, but above all, I lied to myself. I convinced myself that I was a successful, important, respected man, when in reality, I was just a coward, an imposter, an empty man who bought things to fill a void that was never filled. Today I woke up in my cell and I saw myself in the mirror, and I didn't recognize the man who was there, thin, gray-haired, with deep wrinkles, with tired eyes. And I thought, is this all that's left of Humphrey Sterling? The answer is, yes, this is what's left. A broken man who lost everything. I lost my family, my company, my freedom, my dignity, and worst of all, I lost my chance to be a good father. Sophia, I'm not asking you to forgive me. I don't deserve it. I just ask you to learn from my mistakes, not to make the same ones, to raise your son with love, with truth, with humility, and to know that even though I was a bad father, I always loved you, in my mistaken way, but I loved you. I wish you, Tadeo, and my grandson Michael the best. Your father, Humphrey. Sophia finished reading. She wiped her tears with the back of her hand. I was crying too. What are you going to do? I asked her. I don't know. Part of me wants to forgive him, but the other part still hurts. Forgiveness isn't something that happens overnight. It's a journey, and you decide when you're ready to walk it. Sophia nodded. What I do know is that I don't hold a grudge against him anymore, because a grudge only poisons me, not him. I hugged her. You are very strong, Sophia. I learned from the best. A few months later, I ran into Martha Hernandez, the woman who had lost her savings because of Mr. Sterling. We were at the supermarket. She recognized me and approached. Mrs. Jackson, how are you? Fine, Martha. And you? Better, much better. Thanks to Mr. Sterling's sentencing, we managed to recover some of the money. Not all of it, but some. I'm so glad. And there's something else. My husband and I bought a small piece of land. We're building our house ourselves, little by little, but it's ours. I smiled. That's wonderful. Yes, and you know what the best part is? We're building it with honesty, without deception, without lies. And that gives us peace. Honesty always brings peace. Martha took my hands. Thank you, Mrs. Jackson, for not staying quiet, for defending us. You changed our lives. No, Martha. You changed your own lives. I just told the truth, but you had the courage to fight. We said goodbye with a hug, and I felt something inside me heal a little more. Another year passed. Michael turned 3. He was a cheerful, curious, smart boy. He looked so much like Tadeo that sometimes my heart ached with love. Tadeo had been promoted at his job. He was now a project manager. He earned well. He wasn't rich, but he lived with dignity. Sophia had finished her master's degree in architecture. She worked designing eco-friendly homes. She was doing very well, and I was still the same, but calmer, more at peace. One day, Tadeo came to visit me. Mom, do you remember Mr. Sterling? Of course. Why? Sophia told me he's very sick. He has diabetes, and since there's no good medical care in jail, he's getting worse. How serious? Serious. He lost a toe, and they say he could lose more. I felt a pang of sadness. And Sophia, how is she dealing with that? Badly. She wants to go see him, but she's afraid. Afraid of what? Afraid of feeling pity. Afraid of believing his lies again. Tell her to go, but to go for herself, not for him. What do you mean? To go to close that chapter. To say what she needs to say, not to save him, because he has to live the consequences of his actions. Tadeo nodded. You're right, Mom, as always. Sophia went to visit Mr. Sterling 2 weeks later. When she came back, she came to my house. She needed to talk. How was it? I asked her. Difficult, very difficult. Tell me. We sat in the kitchen. I served her coffee as always. When I went into the visitation room, I barely recognized him. He was in a wheelchair, thin, pale, with completely white hair. Her voice broke. He looked at me and said, "Thank you for coming, daughter. I didn't think you would." And what did you tell him? I told him, I came because I needed to close this. I needed to tell you how I feel. And how do you feel? Sophia took a deep breath. I told him, Dad, I'm angry with you because you lied to us, because you hurt us, because you chose money over us. But I'm also sad because you lost so much time being someone you weren't. And now you're here alone, sick, with nothing. What did he say? He cried. He asked for my forgiveness. He told me he wished he could go back in time, that he would do everything differently. Did you believe him? Sophia shrugged. I don't know. Maybe yes, maybe no, but it doesn't matter anymore, because the past can't be changed. You can only learn from it. Very true. Before I left, I told him something else. What? I told him, Dad, I hope you find peace, truly, but that peace has to come from you, not from me, not from Mom, not from anyone else, only from you. I felt a lump in my throat. That was very wise. Do you know what the last thing he told me was? What did he say? He said, I once called Tadeo an idiot, but the real idiot was always me, because I had everything that mattered and I lost it chasing things that were worthless. We were silent, because those words said it all. Humphrey Sterling died 6 months later. It was in the prison infirmary, alone, without family, without friends, just a guard who found him in the morning. Sophia received the news. She cried, not because she missed him, but because she was crying for the father she could have had and never did. They held a small funeral, just Sophia, Mrs. Sterling, and Sophia's sisters. Tadeo didn't go. He asked me if he should go. It's your decision, son. But remember, respect is not for the dead. It's for the living. If you go, go for Sophia, not for him. Tadeo decided not to go, and Sophia understood. After the funeral, Sophia called me. Mrs. Jackson, do you know what the saddest thing is? What? That it was just us at the funeral. All those people he called friends, all those business owners and politicians, none of them came. They were never friends. They were just contacts. And contacts disappear when there's no more power. You're right. My dad died alone, without money, without family, without anything. Everything he built was taken by life. That's karma, honey. It's not vengeance. It's balance. Your father sowed lies and reaped solitude. Sophia sighed. You know, Mrs. Jackson, a few years ago, I would have said my dad was a successful man, that he had everything. But now I understand that he had nothing. Because the most important thing in life isn't what you have. It's what you leave behind. And my dad didn't leave anything good. But you will leave something good. How do you know? Because you learned from his mistakes. Because you're raising Michael with love, with truth, with values. And that is a legacy. One Sunday afternoon, the whole family came over for dinner at my house. Tadeo, Sophia, Michael. Mrs. Sterling came too. I prepared a spicy stew, everyone's favorite. We ate, we laughed, we told stories, and at one point, Michael, who was now 4, asked me, Grandma, why did I never meet my other grandpa? Everyone fell silent. I looked at Sophia. She nodded, giving me permission to answer. I knelt in front of Michael. I looked into his eyes. Because your other grandpa made bad choices, my love, and bad choices have consequences. What are consequences? They're what happens when you do something wrong. Life teaches you so you can learn. And he learned? Yes, he learned, but too late. Michael thought for a moment. Then I'm going to do good things so I have good consequences. We all smiled. Exactly, my love. Exactly. I hugged him tight and thought, this child is going to change the world, because he grew up in truth. That night, after everyone left, I sat in my rocking chair. I looked at the photos on the wall, photos of Tadeo as a child, of his wedding, the second, the real one, of Michael on his birthdays. and I thought about the entire journey we had traveled, from that terrible night at the country club to this moment of peace. And I understood something profound. Karmic justice is not magic. It doesn't fall from the sky. It is the sum of our decisions. Mr. Sterling chose to lie, chose to steal, chose to betray, and life gave him back solitude, illness, death in a cell. I chose to tell the truth, chose to defend my son, chose dignity over appearance, and life gave me back peace, family, true love. That is justice. It is not vengeance. It is balance. A few months later, Sophia invited me to a conference. A conference about what? It's about women entrepreneurs. I want you to come with me. Why? Because you're my inspiration. We went. It was at a hotel downtown. There were about 200 women there. Sophia went up on stage. She was going to give a talk about her work as an architect, but when she took the microphone, she said something I didn't expect. Before I talk about architecture, I want to talk to you about my mother-in-law, Frida Jackson. She pointed to me. Everyone turned to look at me. I blushed. 3 years ago, my life crumbled. I discovered that my father had lived a lie his entire life, and I didn't know what to do. But Frida taught me something. She taught me that the truth, even if it hurts, always makes us stronger. That defending what is right isn't easy, but it's always worth it. She stood up at my wedding and told the truth when everyone expected silence. And even though I didn't understand it at the time, I know now that she saved me. She saved me from living a lie. She saved me from repeating my father's mistakes, and she taught me that a brave woman isn't the one who has power. She's the one who tells the truth, even if it costs her everything. The women applauded. Sophia came down from the stage. She hugged me. Thank you, Mrs. Jackson, for being my example. I cried because I understood that what I had done hadn't only changed my life, it had changed the lives of many women. And now, 3 years after that night, I can say with certainty that life does do justice. Not always quickly, not always as we expect, but always. Humphrey Sterling had power, he had money, he had admiration, but he died alone, without love, without peace, without a legacy. I never had power, I never had money, I never had admiration, but I have something much more valuable. I have my son, I have my daughter-in-law, I have my grandson, I have inner peace, and I have the certainty that I did the right thing. That is true justice. 5 years have passed since that night. 5 years since I took that microphone and changed the course of our lives. Today, I am 60 years old. Tadeo is 33, Michael is 5, and Sophia is pregnant again. This time, it will be a girl. They are going to name her Frida. When they told me, I cried for hours. Why, Frida? I asked them. Sophia took my hands. Because we want our daughter to grow up knowing that there was a woman in this family who had the courage to tell the truth, who stood up when everyone expected silence, who defended what was right, even if it cost her everything. We want her to be like you, Mrs. Jackson, strong, brave, honest. I didn't know what to say. I just hugged my son and my daughter-in-law and cried tears of joy because I understood that my story wouldn't end with me. It would live on in that girl and in her children and in her grandchildren, the legacy of the truth. This morning I woke up early. I made my coffee, like every morning. I sat in my rocking chair by the window. I watched the sunrise. The city was slowly waking up. The birds were singing, the sun painted the sky orange and pink, and I thought about everything I had lived through. I thought about my youth, about the difficult years after the divorce, about the nights when I didn't know how I was going to feed my children. I thought about Tadeo as a boy, how he asked me why his dad didn't live with us, and how I explained to him in simple words that sometimes love isn't enough to keep a family together. I thought about all those years working, cleaning houses, selling meals, doing whatever was necessary so that my children had what they needed. And I thought about that night at the country club, about Humphrey Sterling at the microphone. That boy is an idiot, but my daughter insisted on marrying him. Those words that changed everything, because they forced me to make a decision, to be silent and protect the peace, or to speak up and defend dignity. and I chose dignity, always dignity. I got up from the rocking chair, went to my room, and opened the drawer of my nightstand. Inside was a journal, the same one where I had written that night 5 years ago. I opened it. I read what I had written. Today, I learned that life doesn't always give us what we deserve. But if we are brave, if we defend the truth, if we protect those we love, life gives us something better. It gives us inner peace. I smiled, because those words were still true. I kept flipping through the journal. There were more pages, more thoughts, more lessons, and I decided to write something new, something that summarized everything I had lived. I took a pen and wrote, "To the woman who reads this someday. Maybe you're my granddaughter, Frida. Maybe you're another woman going through something difficult. I don't know. But if you're reading this, I want you to know something. Life is going to put you in situations where you'll have to choose between truth and comfort, between defending what's right and keeping the peace, between being brave and being quiet. And in those moments, you're going to be afraid. Afraid of losing the people you love, afraid of being alone, afraid of the consequences. But let me tell you something I learned after 60 years of life. Silence protects no one. It only protects the lies, and lies sooner or later always explode, always hurt, always destroy. So if you have to choose the truth, even if it hurts, even if it costs you, even if they walk away from you, because the truth is the only foundation on which something true can be built. A true love, a true family, a true life. I made that decision 5 years ago, and I lost many things in the process. I lost the illusion of a perfect wedding. I lost my son's trust for a while. I lost the approval of many people, but I gained something more valuable. I gained my dignity, I gained my inner peace, and I gained the respect of the people who truly matter. Today my son loves me, my daughter-in-law respects me, my grandson admires me, and that is worth more than any external approval. So don't be afraid to tell the truth. Don't be afraid to defend what is right. Don't be afraid to be brave, because brave women are the ones who change the world. One truth at a time. With love, Frida Jackson. I closed the journal, put it in the drawer, and took a deep breath because I felt like I had closed a cycle. I had told my story. I had left my legacy. I had said what I needed to say, and now I could move forward with peace. That afternoon, Tadeo and Sophia came to visit me with Michael. The boy ran toward me as soon as he entered. "Grandma, Grandma!" I picked him up, hugged him. He smelled like baby soap and cookies. "How's my prince?" "Good. Today at school I learned about heroes." "Oh, really? And who are heroes?" "The teacher said heroes are people who do difficult things to help others." Very true. Michael looked at me with those big, curious eyes. "Grandma, you're a hero." I was speechless. Tadeo smiled. Sophia, too. "Why do you ask that, my love?" "Because my mom told me you did something very difficult, that you told the truth when no one else wanted to, and that you saved us." My eyes filled with tears. "I'm not a hero, Michael. I'm just a grandmother who loves her family." "But heroes are like that too. They love their family and they protect them." I hugged him tight. "Then, yes, my love, I'm a hero. Your hero." Michael laughed and kissed me on the cheek. And in that moment, I felt that everything had been worth it. Every tear, every fear, every sleepless night, everything. Because I had protected my family, and that was the only thing that mattered. After eating, Sophia asked to speak to me alone. We went out to the garden. There were flowers blooming. The air smelled of wet earth and blossoms. "Mrs. Jackson, there's something I want to tell you." "Tell me, honey." "I went to visit my dad's grave." "How did it go?" "Good. I took flowers. I sat there for a while and talked to him." "What did you say?" Sophia took a deep breath. "I told him I forgave him." I stood quietly, waiting. "I told him, Dad, for a long time I hated you. I blamed you. I wished you had never existed, but today I understand something. You were human too. You carried wounds too. You were afraid too, and you made bad choices, choices that hurt a lot of people, but holding a grudge against you only hurts me. So today I forgive you, not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. Her voice broke. And you know what, Mrs. Jackson? When I said those words, I felt as if something heavy was lifted from my chest, as if I could finally breathe. I hugged her. Forgiveness is not for the other person. It is for us, to free ourselves. I know, and thanks to you, I learned that, because you taught me that defending the truth doesn't mean living with a grudge. It means living with dignity. Exactly, honey, exactly. We stood there hugging under the flowering trees, 2 women, 2 generations, 2 intertwined stories, and I understood that my legacy was not only the truth, it was also forgiveness, justice without vengeance, balance without hate. That night, after everyone left, I sat in the living room with a cup of tea. I turned on the television. There was a show about women who had changed their communities. One of the interviewees was Martha Hernandez, the woman who had lost her savings because of Mr. Sterling. I recognized her immediately. The interviewer asked her how she managed to get ahead after losing everything. Martha smiled. There was a woman who inspired me. Her name is Frida Jackson. She had the courage to tell the truth when everyone expected silence, and that taught me that it's never too late to defend what's right. And what did you do? I confronted my situation. I sued, I fought, and I recovered some of my money. With that, I bought a piece of land. My husband and I built our house with our own hands, and now we live in peace, because it's a house built on truth, not on lies. The interviewer nodded. What would you say to other women who are going through something difficult? Martha looked straight into the camera. I would tell them not to be afraid to tell the truth, not to be afraid to defend what is right, because silence doesn't protect us. It only protects the lies. And we deserve to live in truth. I turned off the television and cried. But this time they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of joy, because I understood that what I had done had inspired other women, other mothers, other grandmothers, other daughters, to speak up, to defend the truth, to live with dignity. And that was a legacy. Today, as I write this, I am 60 years old, but I feel younger than ever because I finally understand the meaning of my life. I didn't come to this world to be rich. I didn't come to be famous. I didn't come to be perfect. I came to be brave, to tell the truth when everyone was silent, to defend those I loved when no one else would, to teach my family that dignity is worth more than any approval. And I think I succeeded, because when I look at my son, I see an honest, hardworking, upright man. When I look at my daughter-in-law, I see a strong, wise, compassionate woman. And when I look at my grandson, I see hope. I see future. I see light. That is what I leave behind. Not money, not property, not fame. I leave behind values. I leave behind truth. I leave behind love. And that is more valuable than any fortune. Last week, Michael asked me something. Grandma, when you're really, really old, are you going to die? Yes, my love. Someday. And then I won't see you anymore? Not with your eyes, but you will with your heart. How? I knelt in front of him. I looked into his eyes. Every time you tell the truth, I'll be there. Yes. Every time you defend someone you love, I'll be there. Every time you are brave, I'll be there. And how will I know you're there? Because you'll feel a warmth in your chest, a peace, and you'll know I'm with you. Michael smiled. Then you'll never leave. Never, my love, never. I hugged him, and I knew it was true because legacies don't die. They only transform. Tonight, as I look at the stars from my window, I think about everything I've lived, and I wonder, what would I say to the women who read my story? I would tell them this. Don't be afraid to be brave. Don't be afraid to tell the truth. Don't be afraid to defend what is right, even if everyone tells you that you're crazy. Because the world needs more brave women. Women who stand up when everyone expects silence. Women who say enough when everyone says endure. Women who choose dignity over comfort. Because those women change the world, one truth at a time, one family at a time, one generation at a time. And if my story helps a single woman open her eyes, if it helps a single mother defend her child, if it helps a single daughter escape a lie, then everything will have been worth it. Every tear, every fear, every difficult night, everything. Because in the end, what matters is not how long we live, it's how we live. And I chose to live in truth. I chose to live with dignity. I chose to live with love. And that is my story. The story of an ordinary woman who did something extraordinary. Not because she was special, but because she decided not to stay quiet. Tomorrow, I'm going to see Tadeo and Sophia. We're going to the park with Michael. We're going to get ice cream. We're going to laugh. We're going to live. Because that's what families that truly love each other do. They live, they love, they forgive, they grow. And I'm going to keep being the grandmother who tells stories, the grandmother who bakes cookies, the grandmother who hugs tight, but also the grandmother who teaches that the truth is always better than a lie, that dignity is always better than appearance, that true love is always better than fake love. That is my legacy, and I am at peace with it. So if you're reading this, if you're listening to my story, I want you to know something. You too can be brave. You too can tell the truth. You too can defend what is right. It doesn't matter your age, it doesn't matter your situation, it doesn't matter your fear, because courage is not the absence of fear. It is acting in spite of fear. And if a 55-year-old woman could stand up at a wedding and destroy an empire of lies, you too can stand up in your life and say, enough, this ends here. Because you deserve to live in truth, you deserve to live in peace, you deserve to live with dignity. We all do.